March 3, 1991. Rodney King and two of his friends were speeding on the 210 freeway and were spotted and chased by two California Highway Patrol officers before they pulled him over and attempted to subdue him when 5 more LAPD officers arrived on the scene, tasing King, then beating him mercilessly with batons. Warning, the following video contains distressing images. They broke his right leg bone, bruised and cut his face and body, and his chest had burn marks from a stun gun. What a lot of news reports failed to mention was that King's 2 friends were also assaulted, off camera. Meanwhile, nearby resident George Holliday covertly recorded the incident from his balcony with a camcorder and sent the footage to news station KTLA. The video was then distributed all over the world. The incident led to an uprising across the city of Los Angeles in April 1992, after a jury acquitted virtually all of the officers, only sentencing Sergeant Kuhn and Officer Powell to an absurd 2.5 years. It became a sensational case of police brutality. 63 people died in the riots, with 2,383 injured and 12,000 people arrested. Property damage was estimated to be over $1 billion. Rodney King became a symbol for the African American community, who are all too familiar with police brutality since time immemorial. This barbaric practice didn't stop there, however, because we also have LA Sheriff Department gangs. The King beating showed the world the level of police brutality many fall victim to. Law enforcement officers who are sworn to protect and serve are forming gangs and acting like thugs. Fact is, there are deputy gangs in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. Even though their existence has been exposed more and more lately, they've been around for quite some time. What makes it more devious is how they operate secretly. And God forbid you speak out against them, because your entire existence will be in jeopardy. They will stalk and prey on you, going so far as to park outside your house to send a message. Even more disturbing is that at least 19 people have been killed by sheriff gangs, including many who are mentally ill. And all of them were people of color. That's how brutal these sheriff deputy gangs have gotten. According to reports, the problem with gangs was first identified in the 1970s, calling themselves cliques. Over time, the number of sheriff gangs numbered 24 groups, many of whom are still actively involved in unlawful activities all over LA. The first deputy gang that was exposed in the LASD's East LA station went by the name Little Devil. All of these gangs usually operate in areas populated by minorities, and they make sure to recruit sheriffs who are cut from the same cloth. The gangs are more powerful than most people know. In a 2021 report, it was revealed that the Compton station of the LASD was run by a violent deputy gang known as the Executioners. It's important to note that Compton is heavily populated by African Americans, and unsurprisingly, it's one of the hubs for deputy gangs. At least 6 sheriff's gangs remain active, and some prominent names amongst them are the Banditos, Lynwood Vikings, Jump Out Boys, the Cavemen, 3000 Boys, and the Wayside Whiteys. So how does one find out if a deputy is part of a gang? While they are discreet in their operations, these deputy gangs can be identified by their tattoos and hand symbols. The Wayside Whiteys, for example, seem to want to emulate West Side Street Gang since they throw up the W, twisting their middle and ring fingers. Let's be real, they're no different than street gangs, as the behavior is no less brutal and violent. Well, they do have better access to guns, with a powerful union to back them up. Until now. Their abuse of power, falsifying reports to cover for one another, and alienating deputies who aren't down with them is now put under a microscope. More on this later. These sheriff gangs are notorious for using brute force. Some allege that they also deal drugs. They have no hesitation in breaking laws they're sworn to protect. In fact, it's the law that needs to protect citizens from these thugs with a badge. prominent gangs, and how they roll. While it is unclear how many cops are part of these gangs, it's believed that the most active gangs of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department are the Banditos, Vikings, 3000 Boys, and Compton's Executioners. Each of these gangs is located in a separate district within the county of LA. The Sheriff's Department also operates the county jails and courts. Dozens of cities in Los Angeles County contract with the LA County Sheriff's Department to provide law enforcement services in the city. Translation: these LASD gangs have a hood that's over 4,000 square miles. To look at what these gangs do and how they operate, let's get into how each gang works separately. The Lynwood Vikings. Let's begin with the notorious Vikings. Based in Lynwood Station, the Vikings refer to themselves as LVS-25, Lynwood Video Sheriffs, Station 25. They use the L hand sign to identify themselves, and are one of the oldest sheriff gangs, founded in the early 90s. They made the crash unit look like the Red Cross. What makes them Vikings? Or why did they feel the need to form a gang? Inquiring minds want to know. One anonymous Viking told the newspaper that, quote, "It's the neighborhood, the environment, what we're up against that make us Vikings. You have to have a strong ID out there because of the minority element. It's like a war," end quote. It's quite ironic to even think of it this way, since these gangs are the ones responsible for causing unrest in the area. They're known to be racists, who engage in assault, murder, torture, planting evidence, and trespassing, being just some of the common occurrences. Apparently, when you're a member of a cop gang, you are absolved of any accountability. Or so thought the Vikings. Because they not only have suspicious eyes on the black community, but on their own as well. Other deputies, as in potential whistleblowers.
Bring me everyone. What do you mean everyone?
One such case rose to prominence in 1985 when a former Lynwood deputy, Lieutenant Walker Force, had his personal car reported as stolen into the computer. The deputy who had recorded this information also added that the driver of the car was armed and dangerous. It was basically an attempt at harassing Walker Force, who didn't want anything to do with the Vikings. Later, when Force testified, he disclosed that he and other Lynwood deputies were repeatedly harassed by other deputies. Force received threatening phone calls, a Valentine's gift with a dead rat inside, and 2 deputies tried to run him down in their car. Just another day in Los Angeles, California. The East LA Banditos. The East Los Banditos. These men are a highly exclusive group primarily consisting of Latino LASD personnel. The Banditos do not allow women to become members of their gang. The men sport tattoos on their legs or ankle of a skeleton with a sheriff's badge, a sombrero, and bandolier with a figure holding a pistol. The members are sequentially numbered in order of importance, making it easy for them to identify each other. The Banditos are notorious for activities including false arrests, damage to civilian property, and planting evidence. They basically work backwards, meaning they'd arrest the civilian first, then come up with probable cause, planting evidence or claiming threatening behavior. Clever, dirty, and straight up evil. What a combo. Just like its counterparts, violence is a key element, and anyone who dares to question them ends up paying a heavy price. Like Guadalupe Lopez did. Lopez joined the LASD in 2003 and transferred to the East LA station in 2011, where she started training to become a patrol officer with field training officer Eric Valdez, a bandito who was known as the Godfather of East LA. It was just within the first 2 weeks of training with Deputy Christopher Wargo that Lopez discovered him writing arrest reports for other deputies as part of recruitment into the gang. Wargo was a puppy of the Banditos, a prospect. When Lopez questioned Wargo, she was told to mind her business since she was a trainee. In her complaint against the deputies within the department, Lopez insisted that she was subjected to sexual harassment by male deputies. They tell her that female deputies had to perform oral sex on the Banditos to finish their training. She endured a series of sexual harassment, offensive slurs, and continuous abuse. When Lopez refused to give head to these cops and made a formal complaint, she was threatened, once again finding a dead rat by her car. Apparently, exterminators get a lot of help from the LASD. Lopez was devastated by what she had gone through. Eventually, her complaint against LA County got her a $1.5 million settlement. But the damage was done and she was traumatized even after she left. Another victim of the East LA Banditos was Christopher Gray, a Black American from Idaho who was studying to be a nuclear physicist. He relocated to LA to work on some construction projects and was victimized by the police gang's brutality. In August 2012, Gray was ordered to stand back while officers detained his brother-in-law. Gray refused, since he was several feet back and wasn't obstructing the arrest. This was all on film. He was falsely accused of trying to open the door of a patrol vehicle. Despite the footage in which he was seen standing a good distance away from the car, witnesses claim that the deputy kept hitting him in his testicles and calling him a monkey. Olu Orange, a lawyer for Gray, was quoted as saying, quote, "And anytime you're a black man, somebody calling you a monkey, in my book, that's racism." End quote. That's exactly what these gangs feed on: abuse of power and authority. Gray was wrongfully charged for intentionally messing with the law enforcement officer's patrol car. But the charges were dismissed after the prosecutor reviewed cell phone videos of Gray's arrest. Consequently, Gray filed a lawsuit against the county. He settled for $549,000. The deputy and main culprit, Gregory Rodriguez, was later acquitted from all charges. Lying in his report included. And that is how Banditos continue to grow and take control of East LA. Compton Executioners. The Executioners rose to prominence in 2016. As per reports, the gang was formed by a former 2000 Boys member, Andy Toon. Each member of the gang has a tattoo of a skeleton wearing a Nazi helmet. The helmet is embellished with the letters CPT and a Roman numeral 28, as in the 28th precinct in Compton. Everything about the symbol signifies death, with the skeleton holding an AK-74 with flames behind the figure. These guys will kill, assault civilians, and are rewarded for the violence they instigate against members of the community, particularly black people. One of the gang members, Samuel Aldama, who testified and went on record saying he had hatred toward African Americans. Needless to say, Compton Executioners is a racist gang who takes every opportunity to wrongfully arrest and accuse people of color for crimes they didn't commit. Another victim was Sheldon Lockett, who was unlawfully detained and tortured by executioners Samuel Aldama and Mizrain Orego. As a result, Lockett ended up suffering from PTSD and doesn't trust police officers. When he sees a police officer in his rearview mirror, he gets a panic attack and starts sweating. 5 years after his arrest, he still suffers from these symptoms. Yet another victim of police violence was Donta Taylor, who was killed in Compton in 2016 while he was taking a walk around his neighborhood. He was not armed, as alleged by the two officers when a foot chase ended in his death. Taylor's father and 3 children won $7 million when they sued the city. These cop gangs continue to terrorize innocent civilians, and sadly, not much has been done to hold them accountable. Until now. Cracking down on gang membership. County Inspector General Max Huntsman ordered deputies to show their tattoos and participate in interviews regarding alleged gang membership. The sheriff, Robert Luna, said, quote, "The department supports any investigation that seeks to uncover wrongdoing, since all members of the sheriff's department are expected to hold themselves to the highest ethical and professional standards. Department members who engage in misconduct or criminal activity will not be tolerated and will be held accountable." End quote. This development seems promising, as the brutalities by LA cop gangs and their sinister activities have intimidated citizens for decades. They seem to just get away with torture, murder, felony, wrongful arrest, and messing with paperwork in their respective departments. It's about time that these uniformed gang members were brought to light, talked about publicly, and held accountable for the acts of terror they have subjected the community to. After all, the police are supposed to make people feel safe and engage with the tax-paying citizens with respect and freedom from bias. A transparent inquiry, followed by accountability of these gangs, will help ensure that all citizens feel safer in their communities, especially African Americans and other minority groups, as they are the ones who suffer the most at the hands of sheriff gangs like the Banditos, Executioners, Vikings, Jump Out Boys, and many others. Justice must prevail for everyone, regardless of their skin color or ethnicity. If you want to check out another video about a corrupt gangster cop, click here. Thank you for watching. Peace.